Look it up. You're gonna have, like, you need to look it up yourself. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. All right, I know I said I wasn't gonna make any more TV content, but I don't give a fuck about that. That was yesterday, that was before. Still more that I want to talk about with this. I thought it'd be fun to break down all the little hidden details and everything that I found.
Rivalry! Rivalry!
A lot of these I found on Reddit. I'll put a link to that subreddit if you want to keep reading.
Well, this is really fun and helpful.
Anyway, let's get to the list.
Okay, calm down.
No, you calm down.
Okay, so I've broken the video up into like 3 different parts. This first part is just sort of like a general kind of hidden details section. You'll see. It's not gonna make total sense, okay?
Where's the cottage?
In the very first scene in the show, when Ilya is smoking a cigarette, the cigarette is not lighting, and when Shane actually comes up, there's like a spark, a literal spark, which is kind of cool. In one of the very first scenes of the show, you've got both Shane and Ilya getting drafted, I assume. I'm not like a big sports person.
Obviously.
When Shane is being quiet with the management team, his mom's doing all the talking and she kind of nudges him that he needs to speak up.
You have to talk louder.
Which is sort of the polar opposite of what happens when Ilya is up. He's talking to management. He's silent. His dad expects him to be silent. And the one time he does speak up, his dad tells him to be quiet and be respectful. So you see like a very stark difference in how the two were raised, like right from the start. A constant throughout is Shane trying to get his ginger ale.
Honestly, ginger ale.
A lot of the places that he orders it, they don't have it. And it's cool that the people in his life who really seem to care about him, they're the ones who stock the ginger ale. We see that with Hayden and his wife, but then of course we also see it with Ilya in episode 4 during the tuna melt scene. And it's pretty clear that he has it for Shane. As an extension of that, there's the scene in episode 5 where Ilya and Shane are on the phone with each other, and Ilya is back home in Russia, and he talks about how nothing he ever does is good enough. But one of the things that he says is he makes sure that the food is perfect. And that's like one of the ways that he has tried to show love in his life. In that episode where he's having Shane over, it's all pre-prepared and he's ready to make the tuna melt and he has the ginger ale there for him. It's like Shane is one of the people in his inner circle that he is making things perfect for. You could tell that Shane is a bit of a neat freak in a lot of the episodes. Like he's like folds his pants up when coming to the hotel that one day. But kind of a cool thing throughout is like Ilya sees this and knows this. And so whenever he comes into Shane's spaces, his apartment or the cottage later on, Ilya takes his shoes off.
Take your shoes off.
And when Shane goes to Ilya's house in that 4th episode, he kind of starts to take his shoes off and Ilya's like, no, you can keep them on and bring him in. So he's like, even though that's not something that he abides by in his own house, he's always been really respectful of Shane. When Ilya wins the cup for the first time, he's holding it up and yelling and he's screaming, "I love you, Mom," in Russian. It's so sweet, especially after you know the story about what happened to his mom by episode 6, I believe. I did not catch it the first time I saw the show, but the second time I saw him yelling for his mom, it broke my heart. I thought it was so sweet and such a special moment. In episode 6, when they're both at the cottage, there are different scenes with each of them wearing each other's flannel shirts.
It's a balmy night. No one needs to be trading clothing out there.
And I believe Shane also wears Ilya's sweats in episode 4, so they're kind of swapping clothes sometimes, which I do believe is an intentional choice and not just like a wardrobe malfunction. Speaking of wardrobes, a cool little detail is when Shane meets Rose that first night at the bar, she's wearing fake leopard print, and later during the club scene, Ilya has real leopard print. Someone on Reddit wrote specifically how like they were very similar in certain ways, but that like Ilya is like the real deal for Shane versus Rose being sort of like an imitation of what he wanted. Speaking of that club scene after it, when Shane goes up the stairs with Rose and there's kind of like all sorts of flashbacks, I wasn't quite sure who's in what's head and what's supposed to be real and what's supposed to be a fantasy. But the kind of going theory online right now is that there is a scene with Shane and Ilya hooking up in the shower. That's Shane's shower. Later in that same montage or weird cut of scenes, we see that Ilya is alone
In the shower.
So the going theory is that Shane was picturing Ilya alone in his shower while hooking up with Rose. This isn't like confirmed anywhere, but it's sort of a fan theory, and I do think that this theory makes a lot of sense. Still more in that episode 4, there is the scene where the two of them are sitting on the couch eating their tuna melt, and there's a big piece of art hanging up behind them.
Art.
The colors on Shane's side are of Ilya's team, and on Ilya's side, it's of Shane's team. Like Montreal versus whoever else. I don't know. I can't remember. Again, the sports is not what was keeping me into this show. And now a little Scott and Kip love. The smoothie that Scott is ordering when he's first meeting Kip is called Blue Moon over Brooklyn. He gets that several times. That's how they start to meet, blah, 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 blah.
This smoothie saved my life. Smoothie.
When they are hooking up for the first time at Scott's apartment, there is blue moonlight coming in through the window, presumably in Brooklyn. And more on Scott, it's believed that he's a pretty superstitious player. Apparently that's like a fairly normal thing. He gets those socks from Kip, those like smoothie socks, and he's wearing them at his game. And then later, when those two aren't necessarily together, he continues to wear them. He covers them up with other socks, but he's still wearing them because they're his good luck charm. And that is the season that he ends up winning the cup and gets to have that big final moment with Kip. So it was his good luck charm, and it worked for him. I'm no longer at home and I forgot to record the last one in this section, but in that scene where Ilya is speaking Russian to Shane and he's in the tunnel, there's a cool shot where it zooms out and there's a police car that drives by, which is just this reminder of how dangerous it is for him to be gay in Russia. It's a really good shot and I wanted to make sure it ended up on this list.
References.
All right, in this section of the video, I'm calling this just like callbacks to earlier episodes because there's a lot of things that they set up in the first couple of episodes that then come back later in episodes like 5 and 6. My personal favorite of these things is sort of Shane and Ilya's like relative closeness to each other in different scenes. So one of the first times we get a shot of them like this is in the workout room where the two of them were just biking and whatever else, and then they sit down towards each other. In that scene, Ilya's got his legs out towards Shane, sort of like he's kind of bridging that gap. And Shane is like pretty like, you know.
Oh, that's good acting.
There are tons of scenes where it's like the two of them in the shot separated from each other. And as the episodes go on, these two are getting closer and closer. So there's the scene of them in episode 4 when they're in Ilya's house and they're on the couch, but they're sitting away from each other. And then when they're at the bar in episode 5, they're this close to each other. And then when they're at the beach in episode 5, they're this close to each other and they're actually like just about to touch hands like out in public, which is kind of a big deal. So there's this cool sort of physical proximity that we see to them as they get closer and closer as they are emotionally getting closer and closer to each other. At one of the first press conferences that the two of them are in, this is still when Ilya doesn't know English very well. There is a reporter who asks a very like long and kind of complicated and convoluted question, and Ilya kind of freezes there, not knowing what to say.
Today, Junior?
And Shane touches him with his toe and kind of gives him a look that's like, I got this. And Shane gives like, you know, a good answer. Now this is kind of cool because later in the show, they touch feet again when they are at Shane's parents' house after being caught at the cottage. And in this context, it's kind of the opposite. Shane's the one nervous and scared and kind of at a loss for words. And Ilya touches his foot to be like, I'm here with you, I got you. And also Ilya kind of takes the lead in that moment. Kind of a cool parallel there. Okay, more on these callbacks. In the first several episodes, they hook up many times.
Nice.
But it's almost never in the daylight. But in episode 6, when they're in the cottage, they start making out in the daylight, windows open.
This English cottage is coming together.
And a lot of the ways that they fooling around with each other mirrors what they're doing in the first episode. But I think like Shane is doing to Ilya what Ilya was doing to Shane, like sucking thumbs and like whatever else. So in episode 2, right after Ilya drags that chair across the room in the hotel room, he tells Shane how hard it is to find good vodka in Canada.
Vodka is good.
And there is good vodka, presumably good not only because he says it's good to Shane's dad. You could assume that maybe he's just being nice to his dad, but I think he really means it because it is the same vodka that Svetlana, Ilya, and whoever that other guy
It's not important.
Not important.
was drinking in Russia in that like bathroom scene. Speaking of Svetlana, in episode 2, when she is at Ilya's house, it's when we're first introduced to her character and she like scares him in the house. Shane and Ilya have been texting at this point and Ilya texts Shane, "You don't deserve me," in quotes.
Brutal.
That comes up later in episode 5 when they're in Russia and Ilya is with Svetlana and his brother in that like corridor area. They have that big fight. It's this big uncomfortable moment, and Ilya says to Svetlana that, that he loves her and he doesn't deserve her, and she says, yes, you do.
But maybe I do deserve it. Maybe we both do.
So she's mirroring the same language that he used with Shane when her character was first introduced. And I believe that's her last scene in the show. So it's like her first scene and her last scene. I hope everyone's taking notes. If you're writing a TV show, this is how you do it. This is a cute one, and I'm going to read it so I actually get it right.
Smart.
When Ilya asks Shane if they're serious about wanting to be together, Shane says, I want that so much. And after they say, I love you to each other for the first time in episode 6, Shane says, I love you so much. And then in episode 6 again, when Shane is talking to his mom, he tells his mom that he loves her. And she says, I love you so much. So very sweet, kind of full circle language moment.
Oh, they went to the cottage. I'd check the cottage.
Speaking of Shane's parents, there's that scene when they're out to lunch and his parents are talking to him about like going to some tennis match and meeting like the princess of some country.
Princess of Genovia.
There's like 2 funny things that happens with this. One, Shane gets up and goes to the bathroom and his dad tells the mom like, princess? Like, why are you saying that? Which kind of gives you an idea that maybe they're on to him in that moment. And you can also kind of tell because like that scene starts out with the table being set for 4 and the server comes by and is like, is there gonna be another person? And the mom's like, no, there's not. And they take the 4th plate away, which kind of leads to the assumption that like Shane has never brought someone to a meal with his parents.
Okay, honestly, same.
Even though we see him have meals with his parents numerous times throughout the show. So it's cool that in episode 6, we get to see him at the table with his parents, with Ilya. And then one last thing about that scene is Shane mentions that he does not want to go to that tennis tournament because he says, I only get like 1 to 2 weeks off a year. And basically that's not how he wants to spend it. So when in episode 5 and he's hurt and he's in the hospital, and he's asking Ilya to go to the cottage with him, he asks if he wants to go for a week or maybe 2, which shows that Shane is literally trying to offer up all of his free time in that entire year to get to spend with Ilya, and presumably all of Ilya's free time as well.
It's a secret.
All right, this last subcategory of kind of like hidden details that I put are called Easter eggs. If you're not perpetually on the internet, you might not know what those are, but Easter eggs are kind of like things that people put in shows or video games or whatever their art might be. It's sort of like things that almost like break the 4th wall, or you would never notice if you didn't know something else about the show or the book or the person who made it. I wanted to go through the ones that I thought were kind of the coolest. So one of the first ones in the show, I think, is Jacob Tierney, the creator of the television show. He has a cameo where he's the director. So in that scene where the 2 of them are like skating towards each other and they keep laughing and he's like, come on guys, let's try to be serious about this, blah, blah, blah.
Do knock it off.
That's the show creator. So that's kind of a good example of what an Easter egg is. Speaking of the creative minds behind the show, of course, you might know that the show is based off of a book.
Yeah, we know.
Written by Rachel Reed. And in episode, like 4, I guess, when Shane starts dating Rose and there's like the celebrity gossip about him and her, maybe that's episode 5, I can't remember.
4.
There's sort of that montage about like what the press is saying about him and Rose Landry, and it shows a bunch of tweets from people, and one of the tweets towards them as a couple is from @ReedOfTheRachel, which is pretty cool. That's like a nod to the author of the book. So speaking of Rose, in terms of naming conventions for the characters, it's pretty cool that Rose is Shane's actual girlfriend and Lily is Ilya's code name in his phone. So it's like Rose and Lily, you've got this like flower sort of theme going on there, which makes the whole flower in the Metro's logo that much funnier. And whether or not this is intentional, I don't know, but Rosenoff's name is shortened a couple of times in the show and people call him Rose or Rosie or whatever else. And so it's kind of funny that Rose's name is just a shortened version of Rosenoff. Okay, this one I had no idea until I got on Reddit. So, shout out to the people who figured that out. And I think Jacob Tierney said something about it in a podcast. So this is kind of funny. The team logos that were designed, I honestly believed that those were real team logos of real hockey teams. Because again, I don't know. You're an idiot! But they're actually funny innuendos. So Ilya's is a cannon which sort of alludes to certain anatomical features of his. And Shane's team, the Metros, is like an M with a flower in the middle, and I'll let you look up the photos if you want. But it's actually hilarious to me that they did that, and supposedly their first drafts of the potential team logos were even more racy than these were. So I just think that's hilarious. Look it up. You're gonna have, like, you need to look it up yourself. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. There's a song that's playing in the car when Shane and Ilya are driving to the cottage. I'm gonna have to read it, and also I'm gonna butcher it because I don't know French. But the song is called Leonarque Urs. Oh my God, let me try this again.
You got this.
Leonarche de Courv. I'm gonna put that on the screen. Anyway, it's a theme song from another show in Quebec, and it translates to the cottage. So that's kind of cool. Speaking of episode 6, there are title cards before every single episode. And usually what it is it comes up and it's like, you know, heated rivalry or whatever. And it's like crowds cheering, and it's usually very loud. But in episode 6, in the cottage, it's actually very quiet, and you hear a loon call, which is the same bird call that scares Ilya at the fireplace.
It was scary.
And another fun fact, well, I'm gonna call it a fact. I don't know, I didn't check this, so I just read this straight off of Reddit, but supposedly loons mate for life. So that's kind of a cool parallel to these characters.
Thoroughly fact-checked.
And all right, last but not least,
This one is my favorite.
this is what made me want to do this video in the first place. When Shane is in the hospital after getting hit at that hockey game and Ilya comes to visit him, Shane gets excited when Ilya first comes in, and you can see his heart rate kind of really start to pick up. Ilya comes over and he holds his hand, and his heart rate slows down. And his heart rate eventually lands on 81, which is Ilya Rosanov's jersey number.
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I don't know. I just think that's super cool. I love stuff like that in TV shows. I love when show creators and writers and everyone else come together to put those little things in to really reward fans for paying such close attention. And I think that this show has dozens of great examples of that. That was kind of a smattering of some of the bigger, more interesting kind of fun facts that I found when digging around. But if there are others that you know about, like, please fire off in the comments. I would love to learn more about the show.
You were wrong about everything.
I'll also ask if you could do me a big favor and please like or subscribe. That would really help me out a lot. I'm gonna put links to my other 2 Heated Rivalry related videos at the end of this. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next week.